Hello and good morning to all of you children. Welcome to the class. We are doing lesson number 3, Native Wisdom. Children, let us begin this lesson. Let me just recap you the story once again. The story is about a tourist and a guide. Guide is the person who is a poor person from South America. He lives in the outskirts of Manaus in Brazil. He used to work as a guide in the Amazon rainforests and earn some money, which wasn't sufficient for him, but he used to love his work. Though he was not able to get a lot of money, but he enjoyed his work. And then there was always a chance that he get a rich tourist, whereas he used to get a generous tip. So the Amazon forest is a rainforest, children, which absorbs the rain like a giant sponge, as a huge sponge, and it is very greenery, beautiful. So most of the streams within the rainforests are connected from place to place. It is very long. As I've showed you in the last class, children, you might have gone through the pictures which I've posted in the video. You could see that Amazon pictures know how the river is flowing from one corner of the forest to the other corner. So those are streams, children. So one day what happens, Leon was accompanying a businessman who has come for a business trip in Brazil, and he wanted to see the rainforest. So unfortunately he was a kind of man that he used to think forest is only for the extraction of trees, and he used to think these people, the forest dwellers, the people who live in live in forests, are ignorant, who doesn't know anything, writing or learning or writing, who has no knowledge. So that person used to call Leon as a buckman. And what happens eventually when they go through the forest, within that forest Leon will find a trail, which means a way within the forest. He will stop the boat, he'll tie the knot of the boat to a overhanging tree, and they get out of the boat. They walk into the trail, and while walking, Leon will take out his shoes and hang it over his shoulder. By seeing this stupidity, the tourist, that guy, the companion, starts laughing. He behaves as the guide is stupid, and he doesn't have any sense. Then what happens? Leon would not say anything, and he just walked barefoot, shaking his head in confusionly. Companion also followed Leon. So they passed through a solid vegetation. They reached to a spot where the attention of the companion drew overall, where there would no one be available, and only the beautiful greenery and the river flowing from the stream. So this was it we learned in the last lesson. Now we'll continue the next page number 23. We'll continue the lesson. So what happens here is, he would realize, for instance, that the moth he saw flitting from flower to flower in a forest glade was actually a hummingbird. The thick liana draped over a fallen tree with a richly patterned bark had a flat head at one end of it, for it was really a boa constrictor lying in wait for its prey. It would reach out to pick its prey for flower, only to have Leon spin around, strike his hand away, and tell him that what he was about to touch was a dangerous nettle. Children, he would realize the meaning for this paragraph is, for instance, what happened, there was an insect, a moth means a insect, and it was flittering, it means it was moving slowly and lightly from one flower to other flower in the forest glade. What is the meaning of glade here, children? Glade is a clear or an open space in a forest that usually has a grass growing in it. So it's an open forest in which a moth was moving, flit he the moth was moving, and it was flittering slowly, swiftly, and lightly. It was flitting from one flower to another flower in a forest glade, which is open space. It was actually a hummingbird, which is also called a hummingbird. So then there was also a thick liana. What is liana, children? A liana, a thick woody climber that grows on trees. Do you remember, children, how the tree branches look like? Right, it is dark brown, which has a texture of wooden, which is broken from within, and insects come out from those broken wood. So when a tree, the liana, the thick liana, it exactly looks like a tree structure. It looks like a tree texture. It has the same texture as that. So it is draped over a fallen tree. So there was a tree fallen, and it arranged itself on the tree so perfectly that no one would understand that is it a tree or a liana draped over it. So which was richly patterned bark, which means tree texture, which looks like a the tree, how the design it looks like, children. You have a tree, if you see the tree, how the branch of it looks like from the root to the stem, how does it look like? It was in the same structure, and that is nothing but patterned bark. That is a color. It's a structure, it's a texture which shows the color of the tree. It had a flat head. So that that liana which was draped on the tree, it had a flat head at the end of it, for it was really a boa constrictor. And what is boa constrictor here? A snake that kills its prey by winding itself around its victim and suffocating it. Do you know, children, how snakes wind themselves to a person and kill them by suffocating? The same way, it's a snake, children. It's a snake that kills a person by winding itself around them, and when the person is winded down, it is covered by, it is tightened by something, the person cannot breathe, and then when a person dies. So it was a dangerous snake. Then what happens? It was lying in wait of its prey. So that liana was draped over a tree with a which is richly patterned bark. It has a flat head, and it was really a boa constrictor, which means a snake it was waiting for its prey. He would reach out to pick its prey, pretty flower. He would reach out to pick its pretty flower, only to have then Leon spin around. So the tourist, he was trying to pick a flower there, and then Leon will come and spin around, which means turning around quickly. He'll push him around quickly and tell him that the flower which you are about to touch, was telling that whatever he was about to touch was a dangerous nettle. Nettle means a kind of plant that stings. So next is, soon they came to a point where they had to wade across a stream. The tourist took off his shoes and laughed loud when he saw Leon putting on his shoes. So they reach to a place where they have to walk into the water, children. They have to walk into the stream. Then what happens, the tourist will take off his shoes, thinking of that if I take out the shoes, my shoes won't get spoiled. And meanwhile Leon was wearing his shoes, he was putting on his shoes, and after seeing that, companion started laughing. Leon did not say anything to this. The man, this takes the cake, he said. The tourist said, this takes the cake, which means it's a foolishness. Here, an informal way and mocking of saying this is so strange and hard to believe. If you wade through water with your shoes on, your shoes will get wet and spoil. Then he says, the companion says that if you wear shoes under the water, your shoes will get spoiled and wet. Leon did not say anything, and he entered into the knee-deep water. Then his companion, still shaking his laughter and stupidity of his guide, he followed along. Then what happens? Halfway while they're crossing the stream, the tourist yielded, which means he shouted with a pain and fell into the water with a great difficulty. Leon hauled him out on the bank and discovered that he had been stung by a stingray. So he hauled, means pulled or dragged with a great effort. While walking half the way across the stream, the tourist shouted with pain and he fell into the water. After falling into the water, what Leon did, he took the tourist, he dragged him out of the water, and then he got to know that he was stung by a stingray. Stingray means it's a flat fish which is always buried in the mud, in the sand. And the stingray is a flat fish that lies buried in the sand in the stream's bed, and uses the sting in its long whip-like tail to hit and paralyze its prey. It also uses this as a defense when somebody is about to step on it. When Leon had been able to soothe the pain of his companion with salve from certain leaves, he said to him, "Where the eye cannot see is where people need shoes. Where the eye can see, you don't need shoes. It is not my shoes that I'm worried about, it is my feet." So, stingray is a flat fish that lies buried in the sand, children. It hides himself in the sand within the water, and if you are trying to put a leg on it to protect himself, he would bite you, he would sting you with his tail, whip like tail, which is very hard, and it has a power to sting with that tail, which when it is hit, it has a power to paralyze the person who has stood on it, or whoever it is. It has a power to paralyze the prey. So it uses it only when it wants to protect itself. That is when it is defending. This is as defense when someone is trying to step out. Here we have it also uses it as when someone is about to step him. So generally people, when they step into the water, they would not know what are they going to step. So that is why when it is able to see that something is coming on to me, and the moment it is aware of it, within that moment it will push its tail, and then the person is stung. So that is when He realized, he yelled, he shouted, and he fell into the water, and Leon took him out of the water. So when what happens, Leon was able to soothe. Soothe means was healing him with the pain with the salve, which means there will be few herbs, children, with those herbs are useful to make uh, a balm, which releases the pain, which releases the poison from the body. So he was trying to put on that balm to the companion and told him that where the eye cannot see is where people need shoes. Where the eye can see, you don't need shoes. It is not my shoes that I'm worried about, it is my feet. Okay, children, I hope you understood this lesson. We'll once go through the hard words. First one is flitting, second one is glade, third one is hummingbird, fourth is draped, panther, boa constrictor, nittle, wade, stream, spoiled, companion, yield, hauled, stung, stingray, buried, weep, paralyze, soothe, salve. So these are the hard words. Write it down in your notes, children, and then write, after completing hard words, write your meanings. Put a heading as meanings and then finish your meanings. Now there is a small summary. We'll go through it, children. Of Native Wisdom. Native Wisdom by Yawar Ali Beg is set in the Amazonian forest of Brazil in South America. It is an account of an interaction between a poor tribal called Leon and a rich American tourist over the course of a trek into the forest. Right from the start, the tourist shows he is uncouth and disrespectful through his pompous and arrogant manner. He routinely insults the forest dwellers, including Leon, and thinks nothing of it. Just before they set out on their trail, Leon takes his shoes off and walks barefoot inside the forest. This gives tourists more reasons to ridicule Leon. Leon ignores him and goes on to reveal the mystery of Amazon rainforest to him. When they have to cross a stream, Leon puts his shoes on while the tourist takes his own pairs off. Once again, the tourist mocks Leon because he thinks that Leon is simply spoiling his shoes. As they cross the stream, the tourist, who cannot see past the surface of the water, steps on a stingray and gets stung. After Leon helps him to safety, he reveals to the tourist his reason for not venturing barefoot into places where he cannot see. The theme of the story that wisdom is the domain of the rich alone. The theme of the story that wisdom is not the only domain of rich. Even the simplest and the poorest among us can turn out to be the wisest. The lesson also teaches the importance of respecting other people's tradition and ways, even if they may seem different from our own. It is thus a gentle critique of a modern way which often mocks a traditional form of knowledge. The story fills the reader with a sense of wonder for the natural world it is, with its detailed description of the Amazon forest. Leon's behavior and attitude towards the forest inspires a sense of reverence for the natural world in the heart and mind of the reader. The summary of the lesson, children. Homework would be write hard words and meanings in your class book. Thank you and happy learning, children.